Jeanie Bacharach, casting director for The Bear and The Patient. I want to start with The Bear, which just blew up last year. And I think a big part of it was the actors and the characters they play. And, you know, you're there from the very beginning of the project. So did you have any inkling when you were starting casting on it that this would be something that viewers would respond to?
No idea. I mean, I loved the script. I knew it was special because it was showing a world that we haven't really seen on television. And Chris's passion and Joanna Kalo's passion for it, you know, was so powerful and carried you along. But I had no idea. And you know, the characters were great, the writing was great, but then when I saw the pilot and I saw what Chris did, like tonally, I mean, you know, with just the camera work, the music, the, you know, intensity, like that, I literally, after I watched the pilot, I was shaking for about 3 hours afterwards. I mean, partly from like just how intense it is, but like, I was like, this is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And the fear was a little bit like, is it too inside baseball? Like if you haven't worked in a restaurant, or, you know, was it going to be like too inside for people who didn't know that world? But clearly not. And I just think people related to the characters.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know Chris pitched Carmy to Jeremy Allen White because they had worked together before. So did you guys talk about any other options for Carmy, or was it just always Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I came on to work on the project before it was even picked up. They brought me on to kind of help them sell it to FX, kind of get it over the line. So we put together a whole like pitch book, and I think we did about 5 ideas per character, just to sort of help FX kind of see how this world, you know, would fit and how we were thinking about the casting. And so Jeremy was on that list. I won't say who else was, but he was definitely somebody from the very beginning that was in the conversation. You know, the fear was, we all were like, he's not going to go on to another series. He's just finishing.
Right. Yeah. He just came off of 11-year show.
Exactly. It's Chicago again, you know, like it was like, well, maybe we should talk about some other people, because let's not fall in love with Jeremy, because I don't know that it's going to work. And
is that, like, you hear about that a lot with the casting directors, like, oh, I don't want to fall in love with, like, you know, my number one pick. It's like, you just kind of hope for the best, and then
and then you also you know, you find those hills you want to die on, you know, of like the people, like you're like, no, you're you know, you can't do it for everybody, because you'll never be hired again, because they don't want to fight with you over every role. But like, you know, there are just certain people, you know, as I'm sure all of these people can attest to, that you just, you know, you really go to bat for.
Was Ayo Edebiri one of those people for Sydney on your pitch book?
She was part of our original group, and she was somebody I knew just a little bit, but Chris really knew well, and she really was somebody like in his head from the get-go. I mean, we did read other people, but you know, that she was sort of the bar that everyone had to beat. And then once she read, that was it.
Yeah. Did she read with Jeremy at all?
No, she did not read with Jeremy. Only Evan that was our only chemistry read. But no, she just, and again, this was, you know, because we did the pilot, you know, that's FX's model. It's still a pilot. So we, you know, but this was all in the midst of COVID. So it was all remote. In fact, when Ayo read, she was like in an Airbnb in New York City, and like was having, you know, trouble with, you know, the Wi-Fi, and the lighting wasn't great, and, you know, but
just what you want. So yeah,
exactly.
Well, so Emma, you worked with Emma on, or you casted him in The Dropout, right? Were you just coming off of that when you saw him for this?
No, we cast him in this before The Dropout. I've been obsessed with Evan for years, not because we sort of have a similar last name, but no relation. No, I've just loved Eben for, yeah, I mean, since back in New York days. And so, but that I think was the trickiest role in the pilot to cast, because Richie, just walks such a fine line of, so offensive, and yet you have to root for him. You want him to break your heart. And you needed super funny, had to believe in that world. But he was that was the hill I died on.
Yeah, you need to feel for him when Sydney stabs him in the butt later. So it's
yeah, exactly. No, and it really just such a hard character. And he originally passed on it. He was doing the Andor Star Wars, and I think he was just like in the thick of all of that. And so he originally passed, and then as we were sort of seeing people and reading people, it was like, this just seems weird. Why would Eben pass? And so I went back to his reps, and I was like, I really think you guys need to talk to him about this. This is really special. And
there you go.
They got through to him, and he read while he was on location in like Scotland. But yeah, he read with Jeremy. And
awesome. Well, switching over to The Patient, this is another show where I think the relationship is so important, although this is not a great relationship at the center of it. But Steve Carell was cast first. So was he already in the picture before you came on board, or
yes.
or
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So you were casting around
him. What's that?
Oh, you were casting around him after.
Yeah. And yeah, the character of Sam was so important. But I mean, really is a two-hander. It's like, it was really like a play. And so we and the producers felt really strongly about not making an offer, that it was really important to see this person read, and then ultimately read with Steve. And Donal was again someone I had high on my list when we started. And but he's worked so much, so initially it was coming back that he wouldn't read. And so we just kind of kept pushing and pushing. He was in the middle of a play at BAM. Anyway, we did some chemistry reads with some other wonderful actors. That was the first live. We actually did those chemistry reads in person, and it was, we're all sort of finding our way, and like,
it feels weird that we're back
village, like in one room, and then like it was like almost like going in hazmat suits and like giving notes to the actors. But then Donal ended up reading over Zoom, chemistry read with Steve Carell over Zoom. And he read the first scene. There were like 3 scenes or whatever. And, it's that thing in Zoom where like you send the actor into the waiting room, while you like chat and whatever, or, decide what the notes are. And he literally like barely made it into the waiting room. And we all like stood up and like started cheering and screaming. We're like, we're good. We found him. We can make this show. And one of the producers actually said, do we need him to read the rest of the scenes? Because I don't. And I was like,
I thought you were going to say like, oh, he's not on mute or like not in the waiting room.
Yeah, right. No. We were like, I think we should really let him finish. He prepared all those scenes. Let's just, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. I guess I understand why you would want to read for that part, because it's not just casting any old serial killer. It's you're casting a serial killer who wants to stop killing. And I guess
exactly. Again, you have to, and it was finding that balance of, the guy who you believe would be doing this. But also, you want complicated feelings from the audience about this character, and you want to believe there is the potential that he can be fixed, he can be, cured. Right. He's just an extraordinary actor.
Yeah. Well, lastly, I want to talk about David Alan Grier as Alan's old therapist, Charlie. I thought that was such an inspired piece of casting. So how did that come about?
Again, just conversations. We just, it was again important to find somebody who could bring a little levity to, and that was the other thing Donal, was able to bring, like, those like uncomfortable, humorous moments. But I think it was really important that that those scenes could bring a little lightness. And I think just a contrast to Steve as, but someone who also had the gravitas, who you believe Steve Carell's character, who's a therapist himself, would have chosen to, be his mentor, be his own therapist. So, but, we, again, there's a sort of short list of people, and we decided David was the guy. But yeah, and his father was, turned out, is actually, I think, was a psychotherapist, or had been, something in that field. So he really latched on, to the character. But it was fun to see him do something so different. Such a tremendous actor too. You forget that he has done as much drama as his comedy. So
yeah, definitely. Well, Jeanie, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time. Gayle Keller, casting director for the Big Door Prize. This is a show set in a small town where everyone basically knows each other. So where do you start with an ensemble show like this?
Oh gosh. Well, I let the showrunner sort of guide me to what he's looking for in terms of the characters. After reading the script, I kind of have an idea of maybe some of the roles, but then I sort of like depend on, lean in on what he wants for these different townspeople and how they're all going to fit together. And he came out of a show that was sort of similar, Schitt's Creek, that had, also a town, so he had some ideas. And it kind of centered around Chris O'Dowd, because he was really the person we had in the beginning. So we just sort of branched out from Chris, like.
So he was your top choice for.
Well, yes, he was attached to the project when I came on. So, like finding his parents, are we going to go with Irish parents? Or are we going to sort of like cheat and have like one of his parents American and one Irish? Or how are we going to do that? Like how long he had been in the States and all that stuff. So yeah, he was like our jumping off point, Chris.
Yeah, because the Hubbard family is kind of like the central figures almost. And I love their family. I love Gabrielle Dennis as his wife Cass, and then Juliet Amara as their daughter Trina's. How did their castings come about?
Yes, well, we wanted, we did want to lean into the comedy of the show. And so we were sort of focused on, for Chris, looking for a wife that also had comedic chops. And in the process of auditioning these actresses, we did have some Kim reads, even though everything was over Zoom, because Chris was in Ireland, and a lot of people were all over the States. So it started with just leaning into the comedy. And then once we found Gabrielle Dennis, then we started looking for the daughter, because we didn't know who the mom was yet. So we wanted to make sure we had the parents before we started searching for the daughter. So once we had Gabrielle Dennis and we knew that the daughter was going to be mixed race, then we had to like sort of more specifically look for a mixed race daughter. Yeah.
And how did you find Juliet?
Well, she was like the last really role that we cast, because it was difficult to get that balance of finding the young girl who's like the right age, that feels like a teenage daughter, isn't too young or isn't too old, also is believable as their daughter, you know what I mean? And then also was a really great actress who we thought could really just pump up all the material. She is Canadian, and at the time she was working on a series, I believe, in Vancouver. And so, we had to make sure that we could get her visa in time, and, make sure that she was off, she was available to us, because she was on another show as a recurring character. So it was like right down to the wire. We got her like at the very, very last moment. We were very excited.
Like she came in person to read?
No, everything was over Zoom.
Okay.
Everything was over Zoom, all of our auditions and all of our callbacks and everything. It's just that we didn't know if her, the series that she was on, like, if she was
Yeah,
going to
she'd
be
available for you guys.
available
Yeah.
to us. And then we also had to work on her visa. So it was kind of a last minute, and it was over the holidays. It was like the December was creeping in, and we were going to start shooting in January. So it was like really, really tight. But we got it.
When it's a situation like that, when you're not sure if you're going to lose the actor, do you have to, how early do you start thinking about like backups? It's like, oh, if you can't get them, should we
Well,
like
I
go to
think-
this person?
I think we're always thinking of backups. We're always, I sort of use this analogy that it's like baseball. Like you have to have a bench. You always have to have that bench. Like if your star pitcher goes out, who's going to come in next?
Yeah, you need a reliever. So
you need a reliever. So we had some ideas in the background. Yes, we did. Yeah.
Mhm. But then when the call comes in, it's like, we're good. Then it's like, yes.
Whew, yes, because we all fell in love with her, her quality, as well as, the fact that she looked like she could be their daughter. She just had this really great quality to her. She was, she was kind of a cool kid. So you can kind of tell from the show, she was opinionated and strong-willed and all that stuff, but very loving to her parents, but also funny, so it was tricky, but
Yeah.
we're lucky we got
Did
her.
she have to do chemistry reads with Chris and Gabrielle?
No, she did them with oh God, I'm awful. I'm blanking on his name.
Sammy? Sammy
Yes, she did it
Cuomo.
with Sammy. Yeah. So for the kids, those chemistry reads were just the two of them. And then for the parents, we had chemistry reads with Chris and some ladies, but we didn't really cross over into the parents and her. We felt like if the relationship with Sammy worked, then it could work.
Wow, that's fascinating because the three of them do feel like such a strong family unit. It's
Yes, they do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. This is Sammy's first acting credit, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did you find him?
Well, we found him, we did find him through an agency who had just signed him, but they found him through TikTok.
Okay.
So he was a kid that was, we didn't find him on TikTok. Actually, the agent was pushing him, but, she said, he doesn't have a lot of credits. He's this TikTok kid, but we think he's great. So we auditioned him first and really loved him and thought he had so many of the qualities we were looking for Sammy. Then we sent him to David West Reed, who fell in love with him as well. And then we did a bunch of chemistry reads. I think we might have done a Sammy chemistry read. I can't remember I think it was just with Juliet. Yeah, I think it was just her, with the daughter. I don't think we did it with the parents, with the father. Yeah.
What's it been like now with, social media, just kind of finding new talent on these platforms like this, like TikTok, you got Instagram,
It's crazy. We've been using, I've used YouTube for years and have always found, because I do so much comedy, I can really go down that YouTube, rabbit hole and search for comedy clips. Instagram and TikTok are a little newer, right? But it's we are sort of looking down. We're looking at those platforms too to see what we could maybe find, but it's not like our go-to necessarily, because I really like to see someone's work. I like to see if they've been in a show or, they've been in another project, or even if they're doing like, improv at a improv club somewhere, I like to kind of find those things. But yeah, it's definitely helpful when you're trying to find new talent.
Mhm. Yeah, because that's like basically the reels too that you have.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I love the supporting cast in here too. I love Josh Segarra as Giorgio because in the first half of the show he seems like such a meathead, and then he has this really deep material in the back half. And he's a scene stealer and everything like the other two. So how did you get him on board?
Yeah, well, he was someone that everybody liked from the very beginning, so that felt like he was definitely a front runner kind of going into the project. But and I think it was, like you said, it's grounded in so much comedy that he's able to do, but it's also grounded in a lot of like real kind of more deep, meaningful kind of dramatic things too. Like he really is an actor who can walk that fine line, you know. And I worked on Trainwreck, which was the Amy Schumer movie a couple of years ago, and Josh had a very supporting role in the beginning of the movie, you know. And I think it was, you know, I knew that he could do the comedy, and I knew that he could walk that fine line, like what you mentioned, because of the other two and some other things that he's done. And he's just a New York actor that I've known forever too. So his arc was it's a big arc, right? It's you have no idea that that's coming, which was also kind of fun, I think, for Josh too, because we kind of let him know what was ahead, and he was really excited about that.
Lastly, would you use the Morpho machine?
God, that's such a good question.
And if you do, what do you want your card to say?
What do I want my card to say? You know, I want to, you know, I'd like to be, gosh, I don't know, you know, change the world, or just something good.
World changer. Yeah.
World changer. Hey, for the better, for the better. I don't know. I don't think I need to know what, you know, the future holds for me. I think I'd opt maybe not to use the Morpho machine.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, Gayle, it's great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you back here in a little bit.
You're so welcome, Joyce.
Thank you. Allison Estrin, casting director for Bupkis. This is a fictionalized version of Pete Davidson's life, and he has said that since it's about his life, he wanted to cast actors who everyone loves. So is that what he told you when you came on board?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of a couple of different things, actually. That, yes, it was actors that everybody loves, like Brad Garrett made complete and perfect sense to us when his name came up for that role. But then there's also a big combination of real people playing themselves in his life, as well as actors that are playing, you know, like Philip Ettinger playing his assistant, who, you know, is also very similar to his assistant in that way. So we kind of have a bit of a mix and match of different types of people. Of just it is a lot of people that Pete just absolutely loves and wanted to figure out a place to have in the show. Paul Walter Hauser was another one, Chris O'Donnell, just actors that he just loved and wanted to figure out where we could fit them in there in a certain way.
Mm-hmm. How do you go about deciding like who's gonna just play versions of themselves and who's gonna play characters?
There were certain people, like his friend Krills, that was just a very obvious, it was written for Krills. And when I met Krills and we did an audition with him, it was just pure magic, that there just couldn't be anyone else that could possibly do that. And then there were just you know, other people, like, you know, for his sister, we wanted someone that would be wonderful and grounded and could also do scenes with Edie Falco and Joe Pesci. And, you know, that wouldn't make sense for his actual sister to do. She didn't want to do that sort of thing. So it kind of fit into place of who was going to end up playing themselves and who was going to be actors that we found.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe we're bearing the lead here because you mentioned Edie Falco and Joe Pesci. And Edie has said she thought it was a mistake when she was asked to play his mom. So how did you guys think of her besides her just being someone Pete liked? And
when I came aboard, Edie was already attached. I think as far as I know, Edie was the first and only person that they went to and asked, and just seemed like a perfect match, especially having seen stuff with Pete's real mother. She, she's a much more a bigger character than Pete's mom, but she has that kind of no nonsense, wonderful sensibility, and seemed to be exactly what Pete was looking for. So honestly, that combo happened, and that's when I said I kind of begged.
I'm on board.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that enticing for you when you hear like, oh, these people are already attached?
1,000%. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, what about Joe Pesci?
Joe was in talks when I came on board. There was a lot of wooing that happened, but they definitely wanted him, and at a certain point there just couldn't be anyone else. It was just so clear that he just was going to be perfect for it, and I think he was.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you come in and it's in the works, do you feel like you have to like look at other options in case it doesn't work out?
Yeah, a little bit, but at that point, when you already have Joe Pesci in your head, you're going to figure out everything you possibly can do to make that happen as well, because it just was such incredibly perfect casting, and truly just such a joy to have him. I mean, every actor was just in complete awe and so excited to be working with him. So it really made the entire process even more exciting.
Mm-hmm. In one of the episodes is a flashback, and we see that he's married on the show to Jane Curtin. Jane Curtin is Edie's mom. So, and I was like, they make a great couple. So how did you go about casting Jane?
I had wanted to do some sort of old SNL throwback somewhere in there. That kind of was something when I came on board that I just said it just felt really important. If there was just any place that we could do that with someone from the original cast, like that just felt like a really special thing. And this episode, the flashback episode, seemed to be the perfect place to do that. And we felt pretty lucky when Jane said that she was gonna come on board.
I was like, I want to see more of them together. I was like,
I know, me too. I'm hoping for another flashback episode in a season 2, because I loved it. I thought it was such a fun dynamic, and seeing the kid with her was wonderful. So yeah,
because that one, that's you have young Pete, who's played by Preston Broderick, right? So how do you find, what's it like casting young versions, especially child actors, of your leads? And this is such a heavy material for a young actor too, because it's dealing with losing a father in 9/11.
Yeah. I mean, it did feel pretty daunting. It was the first script that they told me about that when I met on the show, and I was really excited and knew how important casting young Pete was going to be. The wonderful thing is that there are so many pictures of Pete from all ages, and so it's a pretty specific person. And so when you put out there into the world, and we yes, we went to agents, but we went all over every, Instagram, Facebook groups. We reached out, we found Preston in Arizona, just through different outreach. And it was such a specific look that we needed right off the bat. And so that helped everything. And then from there, besides just having, the different kids do the scene, I also had them tell jokes, and just to see a little bit of young Pete Davidson in them.
Did they know who Pete Davidson is?
It seemed that they did. I mean, it absolutely seemed that they did.
They
Yeah.
got started in SNL young, so.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The show also has a sort of Everybody Loves Raymond reunion, but not really, because Brad Garrett's on it and Ray Romano plays himself in the cameo. They don't have any scenes together. So
Yeah.
what was it like having these? And then there's like a whole gag with Pete buying episodes of the show too on Sebastian.
Right.
So yeah, what was it like having these two, comedy like icons on this show like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. I was sad that we didn't have anything with them together. To me, I'm such a TV fan and nerd, and so it was all really exciting to me that I think also just with both Brad and Ray just being stand-ups themselves, so the stand-up community really supports Pete and they support each other, and they really just wanted to come and do it. And with Ray, we had him, it was supposed to be just one episode, and he had so much fun that he said to everyone on set, like, well, what if I came back, and kind of pitched another idea for him to come back, and then 2 more episodes he ended up in, and which was just incredibly fun to make happen. But it was just a completely separate thing. We cast Brad first. That character was a very different thing, and he wasn't playing himself in any way at all. And so it was really just a very separate thing, actually.
Yeah, Ray just couldn't stay away. So
yeah, exactly.
Well, lastly, is there anyone you couldn't get for season 1 that you would hope or like to get if there's a season 2?
There were some availability issues, but truly everyone that we asked to do it said yes, and we were able to make work. So to me, it's actually just that I'd love to see more of it. I think that scene with John Mulaney is one of the most beautiful scenes on TV I've seen in a very long time, and the two of them are wonderful. And Coulson and Paul Walter Hauser and all of them doing the rehab scene is great. So it's really just that I want to see everyone come back. It was a really great group of actors, and they all just had a blast together. I mean, the feedback I got from everyone was incredible. So we just want more of it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. More Jane Curtin. There you go.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Allison, it's great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you back in a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Debby Romano, casting director for Shrinking, which is co-created by Bill Lawrence, and you and Bill go way back. So what was it like reuniting with him on this?
It was great. It's always a pleasure to work with Bill. We worked with him since Scrubs, and by we, I mean my business partner Brett Benner and I. And it's always you always have great material, and he has great taste, and he listens, he's respectful, and he also has great suggestions. So
what were those conversations with him like? Because I'm assuming you guys just have shorthands now and just are tossing ideas at each other after 20 years working together.
Yeah, I mean, Jason came attached, and it was a big group of executive producers on this, because Jason was an executive producer, Brett Goldstein also co-created it, and with Bill and the Doozer team. So there were just a lot of questions and discussions about who would be great for what role. And it all started with the Paul character, really.
But Harrison Ford.
Yes.
I understand he is Bill's neighbor.
He is Bill's neighbor. Brett and I made a list. It was a lovely list to make for, an Apple show where you can reach for the stars. And it was probably the first time we put Harrison down on a list where we didn't feel like we would be completely laughed out of the room. And Bill, after going through the list and sort of picking out 5 or 6 names that we thought would be great in the role, as well as elevate the material, he sort of stopped us and said, I think these are all great people, but I do want to try to go after Harrison, and it might take some time, but I think it'll really be worth it. So he was the one who ran with that, and it was fantastic.
Do you think he had him in mind at all, or do you think it was you guys putting his name down on the list that triggered it for him?
I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. It's a great question. And he didn't bring it up until the end of our Zoom with all of the producers about that role. So I don't know.
So how long did chasing Harrison take?
The chase was a few weeks. They had to just coordinate him having time to read it because he was working on Indiana Jones and he was in London. And then he wanted to meet someone from the show, and Bill was in LA, I think, at the time, and Brett Goldstein was in London. And so Brett met him for dinner, and like they just fell in love.
Yeah.
And then it was a matter of doing the deal. So that's what took the longest, but we knew he wanted to do it. So that was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
To say the very least.
Is that just kind of like on your end, when you guys used that you put his name down sort of as like dream big, pie in the sky type of thing, and then it becomes reality. So is that just kind of like surreal for you guys? It's like, oh, it actually happened.
Completely. And meeting him at the table read, that was the first time we were in person with our cast, because everything was done on Zoom, and he was just lovely and excited to be there. You never know what you're going to get, and he was thrilled. It was really wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I love the cast because you do have big names, established names like Harrison, obviously Jason too, and then recognizable people like Michael Erie, but then you have like Lukita Maxwell as Jason's daughter Alice, who is amazing. So what was it like casting some of these I guess unknowns, you could call them, like
Yeah, and that's like Brett and my favorite part is doing that. And it's what we've done for so much of our career. We haven't really worked on a ton of projects that you can get a Harrison Ford for. So Lukita was in the submissions, and I had seen her on Generation, and I loved her on that. I mean, she gave birth in a like kiddie pool in the bathroom of a mall in that pilot episode. She just blew me away, and she found such great comedic moments in that. And for this, we really wanted someone grounded. Jason was looking for someone who didn't play the angst and just felt like Alice in her skin. And Lukita, from the first self-tape that we got, really just she shined.
Mm-hmm. Did she do any like chemistry reads with Jason?
Jason read with every actor, so that was a wonderful thing. And we did that on Zoom, and he was wonderful at giving things a go as they were on the page, and then he would improvise with them, and everyone just loved the process. He was really generous.
What about Jessica Williams as Gabby? Because she has pivotal relationships with so many characters, and she works in The Office, obviously with Jason and Harrison too. So what was like casting her?
So Jessica came in for a meeting. She was one of 3 women that producers met with, and she just blew them away. I think her what she shared in that meeting, which Brett and I were not on, because we always think people don't, when it's a meeting with producers, you don't need extra eyes on you. So we just kind of bowed out and hoped for the best. And she has done such amazing things with this role, like above and beyond anything that you can hope for. But it's always that moment where you're like, okay, this is an offer, and you hope that someone's going to bring at least what's on the page. But Jessica is like a magician. I mean, all that she does with that, and making it her own, and having a point of view, all of it is so important to the show, and I think really makes that character stand out. And the writers do a great job with it, and then she takes it and really runs with it.
Yeah, she's also really great with Krista Miller, who's in all of Bill's shows. And I know that Liz was written for her, but I feel like this is kind of like a different type of role for her too.
I agree.
Yeah.
She gets to show her vulnerability. She has so many dimensions, and her relationship with her husband is hilarious.
I love Ted McGinley. I love that casting and their dynamic.
Yeah, there's a good story with Ted too. I don't know if you want to hear it, but
let's hear it. What happened?
Okay.
I know
So,
you guys, he's been close on some of Scrubs and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So he was almost Dr. Cox on Scrubs. And it was just one of those instances where we went to the studio and he was our front runner. And then we got to the network and John McGinley just came up a little bit and blew the room away. And Ted did a great job, but wasn't the choice. And then about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, we did another show where Ted auditioned. They wanted a big name. And in the end, we ended up with Chris Maloney. But Ted came in.
Oh, was that Surviving Jack?
Surviving Jack, yes. And Ted came in and he did whatever it took to get the role. And it was, you know, as wonderful as Chris Maloney was, Ted, I think, would have been equally as wonderful and, you know, really gave himself to the process. And that was awesome to see. And when this came up, it was really just a matter of Brett and I calling Bill and saying, let's stop torturing Ted McGinley. Let's give him something. He would be amazing. And so luckily, Bill was like, I hear you. That makes total sense. And there we go.
Yeah. Third time's the charm, right?
I mean, that, and like, I think timing is everything in that, like when it's really meant to be. And he just is so standout here. I love watching him. So.
Yeah, I want more of him. Because I feel like he just like comes in and then he just kills and then he leaves the room and then you're like, come back.
I think everyone feels like that, especially on the production. So I would like to believe that in season 2 we will get more Derek.
Have you guys what's been like the process on season 2 so far? Like any casting decisions or just new characters in general?
Nothing yet. Nothing yet.
I also love the patients. Jason's patients, Jimmy's patients, and Heidi Gardner's one of them. So they're like kind of bit parts because you don't know if it could just be like a 1 episode thing or they'll be recurring. So how did you go about finding his patients?
Well, we knew with Heidi's character, with Grace, that was going to run the season. She was going to be, you know, the largest of the patient roles. So we had a bunch of people audition and we had some great choices, but in the 11th hour, Bill was like, I really want someone from SNL. And I think Heidi Gardner would be great. Can we check her out? So we did. And, you know, it's just a matter of scheduling because SNL was going on for a good portion of what, you know, the timing with our show. So we just had to work the schedule around her.
Yeah. I also love Luke Tenney. He's there a lot, so he lives with them. So what was that process like?
Yeah, so Luke, you know, when we originally started casting that role, we were open. Any ethnicity, they just had to be like early 20s and you know, be able to play all sides of that character. And Luke, when we got his self-tape, there was something so different about it because a lot of guys approached it, especially that opening when he has to call Jason out for yawning and all of that stuff. He approached it in a way that was different from everybody else who sort of put the testosterone out there. And Luke was more like, it reminded me of Mice and Men. He was more like Lenny. And he was like the gentle giant. And it was so fascinating to see that work. And, you know, it's one of those things where you're watching a self-tape and you just find yourself leaning in and leaning in. And he went through the process and everyone fell in love with him. And there you go.
Yeah, and you kind of need that because, like, you know, he bonds with Alice on the show, so it's like a different kind of tenor with that relationship too. So,
Yep.
awesome. Well, Debbie, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you back in a little bit. Theo Park, you've been the casting director for Ted Lasso since season 1. So, what has it been like to work on an ongoing series, having been there from the beginning?
It's such a great show. I feel very, very blessed, really lucky, but it's really good. We've really dug into the characters, I feel, over the last 3 seasons, and getting to know them a bit better has helped with the casting around them as well, which has been really fun.
Mm-hmm. How would you like say your job has changed like season to season, or maybe it hasn't, but how would it compare? Like, you know, it's, I guess, you know, launching a show, you have to cast all the characters, but then coming back, they're there, and then you're kind of casting new characters and guest stars.
Well, people love the show, so people are always really happy to hear to take our phone calls, which is nice.
Everyone wants to be on the show.
Yeah, we've got some great fans, and people really do put their heart and soul into the auditions as well. That's just lovely. It's a really, really enjoyable process. It's definitely changed. Season 1, I don't think any of us really knew how to pitch it, honestly. I really don't. And but it's become easier in that sense. Because there's definitely there's a proper Ted Lasso flavor, isn't there? And we're really into the groove of it now. Well, we certainly were by season 3.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Well, season 3, you have a bunch of new characters. One of them, Zava, this hot player, just comes in, mysterious, eccentric, this enigmatic star. I feel you see a lot of those kind of athletes in general, not just in soccer. So how did you go about finding the right person for this part?
Well, he was the writers had based him on Zlatan Abramovich, and so that was super helpful. He had to be ideally of Eastern European descent, or at least be able to do that accent, and be very, very tall. So
that was the breakdown.
Those were 2 prerequisites, and also athletic, and also be funny. And I never thought we'd find this person. I really didn't. I thought that was a really hard task. We did sort of talk about sort of stunt casting it as well, like going for someone really sort of famous in a way. But I think I'm glad we didn't, because I think that might have really unbalanced the show. Because that's not what Ted Lasso is about, really. But when Max Ozinski did his amazing audition, I felt huge relief. And then when they chose him, I felt even better relief. But they're really good. The creatives on Ted Lasso are really good at casting. They always do choose the right person.
So did Max come in, or did he just send in a tape?
He just sent in a tape, yeah. But I mean, it was so coincidental, because he happened to have moved to London with his wife and kid, totally coincidentally. And because I reached out to his American agent, and they said, oh yeah, he's available, and guess what, he's living in London. I said, what? And I think they just decided, him and his family had just decided to have like a sort of a 6-month sabbatical in London, and then he got Ted Lasso, and he had to stay for longer. It's lovely.
Did he know how to play soccer?
He did not, but he didn't tell me that.
I mean, that's always the case, right? So,
but do you know what? He didn't actually need to. Zava.
No, he didn't have a lot of time on the field.
No. Yeah. So he didn't really need to. He did actually do some little moves in his audition scene, though, that made it look like he could play soccer.
Well, yeah. So what was it about his self-tape when you're like, that's the guy? Was it those moves?
Well,
or...
because he was exactly like you see him in the episodes. He just sort of nailed that kind of serious arsehole who's
But he's not mean. He's just like, he knows he's like hot stuff. You know?
he thinks he's just incredible. He thinks he is amazing. And Max just nailed that, but with a complete po face in his audition, and then did some amazing press ups and stuff like that to show off his physique. And I thought, wow, that's a bullseye for me.
Amazing. But the season you also had to build Keely's world around her new firm, her new job. Barbara's my favorite character, Katie Wicks. How did that come about?
I mean, she is amazing. Another reason I think why the creatives do always choose the best person is because they've got Brett in the writers' room, and I know he's watching all of the tapes. I know that they all sit around and watch all the tapes, and because Brett knows all of the best comedy people in the UK, and I know that he'll back me up, and you know, he'll always choose the best person. She's amazing, Katie Wicks. She's one of our finest British female comedy actors, and honestly, she's one in my top 5 people of all time. So I was so happy she auditioned for it and she got the part. She's brilliant.
I love her because she's so dry and like so no nonsense, especially with Keely.
She's brilliant, isn't she?
Yeah. Well, the other big part is Jack, played by Jodie Balfour. Also a very significant role in Keely's life, her love interest. So what was that process like? Was it self-tapes again for her, or did you?
Yeah, we were still doing self-tapes at this point. Back when we started. So she taped from, I can't remember where she was living now, somewhere in America. But I knew her because she was in this British show. She's brilliant, Jodie Balfour. She's such a good actor, and of course she played the First Lady in
For All Mankind.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was thrilled to think that maybe she might want to do this, and there we go. We had this amazing audition, and she wanted to do it. I mean, she's brilliant, isn't she?
Yeah. How much did you know about where that storyline was going with Jack when you're casting for these parts?
Yeah. I knew the whole thing. Yeah, Jason filled me in on the whole arc. So it was important to know that she had that range, and it was also important that she identified as queer in real life. That was important for us.
Did she read with Gino?
She didn't actually. Do you know what? We've managed to get away with it on this show. We haven't really done many chemistry reads, and we've got away with it. Touch wood.
You're just that good. Like, they all just have amazing chemistry when they meet. So
yeah, I mean, I was watching that episode with them together, and I just thought, God, it really does work. They're really good together, Juno and Jodie. It really does. I was happy about that. Really happy. Yeah.
Was someone else who came in and quickly left was Shandy, her Keely's friend, who just came in like a hurricane, destroyed everything, and left. And I feel like that kind of character, you know, it's like you kind of want the audience to hate them, but she was also so entertaining. So how did you go about finding a Breen Razia for it?
We saw quite a few actresses for that role, and a lot of them were brilliant. But I tell you what, Anne Breen's tape was hands down knockout, the best tape. And it was almost like there's no point me sending any other tape, because she is. But of course you have to. I get to this stage now where I always send them at least half a dozen to choose through. But I was texting the director and said, if they choose anyone else apart from Anne Breen, they're idiots. But of course they didn't, because they always choose the right person. And she was sensational. She was totally great.
Yeah, it's like when she gets fired and she gives like her scorched earth speech and
and a version, and that was actually a version of that was her audition scene, and she totally nailed it. Totally nailed it.
Well, lastly, is there any casting this season that you absolutely love besides any of the ones that we've mentioned so far?
Oh, that's a good question. Katie Wicks, I'm glad you pointed her out because I was so happy with her. What? There's an episode coming up that I can't talk about.
Okay.
But I'm very I'm very happy with the casting of someone's mother. I can't say anything else.
There we go. So good tease.
Yeah.
Well, Theo, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to our Meet the Experts Casting Directors panel. Today, we are joined by Jeanie Bacharach from The Bear and the Patient, Gayle Keller from the Big Door Prize, Allison Estrin from Bupkis, Debby Romano from Shrinking, and Theo Park from Ted Lasso. Thank you all for being here. Well, you often hear about casting directors remembering actors from previous auditions for projects that they don't get then, but how can actors make an impression on you guys so you remember them for parts that don't even exist yet? Gayle, let's start with you.
It's a weird thing. I don't, people talk about your gut, like, you just like see an actor's work and there's something in your gut that just goes, the question that comes to my head when somebody really impresses me is like, who are you? Like I get so fascinated by them that I just want to know more about them. So even if they might not get a role in whatever I'm doing, that's the impetus for me to go, I got to remember this person. And then I actually try and follow their career a little bit. Like, if I know that they're going to be in a play or if there's a show I see and they're in it, like I might just do my own, watching so that I can know them better. Or see them in a talk show, or whatever, talking a late night show. And yeah, it's just this like instinct, kind of gut instinct, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Theo, what about you?
Yeah, there isn't really a formula, is there, for how and why you might remember someone. I mean, I try, and my memory's pretty bad, actually, I have to say. So I've got folders and I just print out photos, and I've just got folders here in theatre I went to see. But, I have to say, I do remember, in that back room of Edinburgh Festival 2012, and you saw that weird trio, and you remember the one on the right, and like Gayle said, you just sort of follow their career and hope that there will be something that you can bring them in for. And there often is, and it's exciting, isn't it, when you can get someone in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, like Debby, for you, it's like Ted McGinley, basically, right?
That was very rewarding, and I just hope this show does great things for him. I really think it could. And so many people have said to Brett and I, oh my God, it's great to see Ted McGinley again, and he's slaying. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what about you? What can other actors do to make an impression on you for future projects?
I mean, again, I think it really is just the gut. And, I think that just seeing someone come in and nail an audition and, just be themselves. I love when actors aren't afraid to ask questions before an audition, just to inform themselves of whatever is missing that, they want to know more about. I think doing the homework is something that really makes an impression on me. And we're always rooting for the actor. So you just want to see them do well. And if it's not the role that they're brought in for, then hopefully there'll be something else down the line.
Jeanie, what about you?
Yeah, I would say, to me, like sense of humor is such a specific thing to a person. And so seeing like when people bring humor into a piece, like that's so personal. And I think there's thought that's required in that, of like where does this character find find what do they find funny, what's ironic, what's self-deprecating, what's to me like intelligence too, just to see the thought that people have put into their work is fascinating to me. I think sort of what Gayle was saying too, like I just go like I want to know more, like even if like they're so off the mark, but they clearly have like thought this out and it's gone somewhere. I'm like, what the heck was that? And I want to explore that brain.
And bold choices are fun to watch.
Allison, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going off of what everyone has said here very perfectly already. It is exactly that, and the gut as well. And kind of that experience of working with a person that sometimes you can tell, I think we all work with very different types of directors and showrunners. And so maybe someone isn't exactly the right fit for one type of director, but you can tell that like someone's style is going to be so right on for another. And that is really exciting when that director calls and says, oh, I have a project. It's like, oh, good. I have an actor that I think you're just really going to like. And then, because we all just really, our job is being yentas in a certain way and, setting people up. And that's just such a fun thing when everyone gets to kind of fall in love that way.
How does it feel to cast someone in their first job or their first big job where you feel like this could really change things for them, especially if they're just kind of, like a journeyman actor or like Gayle, Sammy was from TikTok. And it's like, this is their first role. Like, and can you think of an example from your career where, you did that for someone?
I think we probably all have, but I mean, it's the best. I mean, it's the best, and it makes all the other stuff that's so hard about what we do. It feels like it's getting harder every day. Which makes it all worth it. Like it is truly the best. I just had an experience on another project where the manager and the director manager and the agent let me be on the Zoom call when they told the actor that they got the role. It was her first,
so nice.
I literally have chills just thinking about it, but I was like, I'd never gotten to do, I've gotten to like do the call after they've gotten the call, but that was, I just started weeping. I think I wept more than the actress, but it just makes all the rest of it. It is truly, at least I can speak for me, and I'm sure for all of you, it is the highlight of what we do.
It's so exciting to give somebody work. It's their livelihood. They get to, pay off their mortgage. They get to pay their insurance, like what a great feeling that is, even though, it's just for that project. I always have, the joy of that. Like, I just love being able to give actors a job,
Yeah. The affirmation of, you chose this career, you knew it was going to be hard, and score is so great.
Yeah.
And even in the small roles, like even just, it doesn't even have to be the huge roles. It's just, that, as you say, giving the person that affirmation and like, you got this, you're on your way.
Yeah. Giving someone their SAG card it's an exciting thing. That just right there is changing their life.
And also, like going back to what you said too about or people who the journeyman, like longevity in this business, and to be able to like give someone that as well, like that, like you've hung in, and and now it's like paid off again, either in a huge way or just another job, like just to stay in this business is
right. Like I think about Jennifer Coolidge. How long has Jennifer Coolidge been around, right? Our I don't remember her name, Theo, but the woman that plays the owner of the team, like, hasn't she like been around? And
Anna.
Hannah
yeah,
Waddingham, yeah.
yeah, you know, and like how exciting for her at this stage in her career.
And
you
how
know?
exciting for a woman in her 40s. full stop,
Yes.
Yeah.
to have,
Yes.
it's great, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
that was the whole thing at the SAG Awards this year too. It was like Michelle Yeoh and Brendan Fraser and Jamie Lee Curtis, and it really was this very powerful ceremony where people talking about like just staying in, you know, or
Yeah.
the young man from Everything, not so young anymore, but you know,
Yeah.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, really,
Yeah,
that whole group
yeah, and
of
Jessica
people-
Chastain's speech too about actors and just, you know, keep going at it as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
hard.
Yeah.
But it can happen at a later stage, so stick with it and believe in yourself.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
Well, lastly, is there a piece of casting or someone's casting that you've admired, you know, the present company notwithstanding, where you're just like, wow, like that was such a well-cast role or a well-cast show or movie?
But I'm currently watching Beef, and I think Ali Wong and Stephen Yeun are just amazing in that show. I mean, Stephen Yeun is bloody hell,
Perfect in everything. Yes, I know.
perfect in everything. But Ali Wong's a revelation, because, you know, haven't seen her do any acting actually. I don't know, maybe she had, but I've only seen her stand up. But I think I think she's terrific. I think they're both amazing. That's perfect casting.
For sure.
I've been watching Reservation Dogs, and I mean, I think what all of the actors that they've been able to find, and I think that it's incredible, and just giving an amazing platform to incredible actors that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. And I think it's a great example of going into a community and just.
Yeah. For sure. That's like another great example of, you know, giving people like a big break and like your first big job. So
Yeah,
I'm sort of am relishing Poker Face, because to see Natasha Lyonne play the female version of Peter Falk brings me nothing but joy. Every episode of this throwback series of her with her, like, it's just so perfect to me that she's doing that part. I just love it.
For me, it's Pachinko.
Oh,
I
so
think
incredible.
extraordinary. And, you know, talk about the power of acting when you're not even understanding, you know, the language. And I just think that cast across the board is,
yeah, incredible. And like multi-generational and everything too. So
yeah.
Agreed.
I have to say, like, I was blown away, Theo, by seeing, and I'm probably not going to say his name right, but Nonzo.
Oh, Nonzo.
Yes.
Amazing.
I mean, I loved him on that CBS show that he was on, and here he was playing Sam's dad, and it was so perfect. And I haven't seen him in, I don't even know how many years. I mean,
he was on Zoo, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, which was a crazy show, but he was so standout in it, and kudos to you.
Oh, thank you. He's pure class. So lucky we got him. He's great.
Right.
Awesome.
And can you talk about Mateo? Please talk about
Yes,
Mateo.
yes. Let's close with Mateo, because everyone's talking about Mateo.
I have to thank Suzanne Groen. If you ever need a local casting director in Amsterdam, she is your go-to. She was absolutely amazing. She helped us with those parts, and I sent her the biggest bunch of flowers because we didn't know who Matteo van der Klein was. And to be honest, it was between him and another, and they were both really different, both sensational actors, but both really different. And Jason and I talked about it, and he was like, you know, Theo, I think I'm going to go with Matteo. I was like, okay, you know, because I was already going to give up my whole life for Matteo. So yes. He says it's kind of like, you know, you go with Chris Martin from Coldplay or Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, I was like, Eddie Vedder all day long.
Amazing.
Yes.
I mean,
I hope he comes
now
back,
everyone's
Theo.
just jealous of Hannah Waddingham in that episode.
I
so.
know. Don't tell us, but I hope he comes back.
My lips are sealed.
Don't say. That's right.
No spoilers here. All right. It was great speaking with all of you guys. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations again on all of your shows.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Joyce.
guys.
Thank you.
Bravo, bravo.
Congrats to all of you.
Nice meeting you guys.